Our new media exhibition is available for the last day today until 8 p.m. And that's at Grandison Lab in Belmont. So if you're interested in the new media exhibition, be sure to check it out today by 8 p.m. Definitely, we want you to feel free to comment, ask your questions, bring any questions that you have for our filmmakers. Today, we're watching two fantastic films about music. Music is center stage today. So we want you to ask your questions if you have any questions for these filmmakers. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors. TTFF 21 is sponsored by NGC. They are signature sponsor. And this year we have leading sponsorship from Shell, Trinidad and Tobago, and Republic Bank Limited. We have contributing sponsorship from NLCB and supporting sponsorship from Sport and Culture Fund, respectively. Today I have with me Sharon Lewis and Danielle Bartholomew-Posyer of DISRUPTOR Conductor. I also have with me Steelpan notes on where pan gone makers Ryan Saunders and Sharon Astillero. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So congratulations on having your film selected for the festival.
Yes.
They say that, music
exciting.
is, I hope you're excited.
Big deal. It's a big deal.
Good.
Out of this world, excited.
That's what we like. That's what we like. Because we're so excited to see the films. So we're very glad that you're out today. We're really excited to be here because we're out today. We're really excited to have you with us. They say music is the universal language. Ryan, do you consider the film that you made an intercultural film?
Yes, it is. Definitely so, because the focus has been on the where the music is going in North America, or at least a certain part of North America, and that obviously means that it's not just Trinidadians or descendants of Trinidadians. It crosses all borders. So it definitely, part of the theme of where pan gone was actually when we saw at Virginia Beach, was it Aaron? We saw so many young Americans of all backgrounds playing pan.
Yeah.
And it raised the hair off of my head, so to speak. That sort of triggered the impetus to really say, let's do this documentary as opposed to something else.
Fantastic. So it's an intergenerational film and it's an intercultural film.
Yes.
That's the thing about music. It brings everybody together. Sharon and Danielle. So Sharon, your film covered Danielle's fantastic initiative through chamber orchestra to bring queer representation into concert spaces to encourage and inspire. And so I'm wondering, did you set out to do something that was intercultural? Was the fact that you were crossing cultures in your mind when you started this film?
No, because I'll say I was one of those people that was a bit biased. I grew up in a Trini Jamaican home, so I heard reggae and I heard soca and I heard pan. And that is what I thought Black music was. And so for me, it wasn't until, then you started to hear funk or, disco and hip hop and that kind of thing. I was like, oh, from Black American culture, that's what Black music is. So when I met Daniel and he said he was a classical music conductor, I was like, well, this guy must not really know his culture. He must really not know who he is or where he's coming from. He can't be Black. And so that's what really set me on that journey with him. How can you be who you are, a Trinidadian, a Canadian, Caribbean, and be conducting classical music? And that documentary with him opened up my eyes. You see that music doesn't have a color, even though that sounds like a cliche, but it doesn't have a color. And for me, one of the most pivotal scenes in the documentary is when I went to go and interview his family in Brampton. And they were talking about how they heard classical music coming up, how they would hear classical music on a Sunday, eating their Sunday dinner, how they would hear classical music in the church. And for me, that was like, but that's colonial music. But what I understood from Daniel and what I understood from doing this documentary is you can't actually separate out music in that way. You can trace its origins, but it's moving and engaging and alive. It doesn't just exist in a bubble like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Danielle, one of the things that you revealed in the documentary is that as Sharon is telling us, your connection to classical music actually goes back to your Trini mom, your Trini moms, right? Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. As Sharon said, you know, my parents and my aunts, my Trini family grew up listening to this music on the radio. My grandfather would be whistling it. So, yeah, the origins, absolutely. It comes from roots of British education, and part of it also is colonialism. But that, well, not even but, and that is what they heard growing up. So for me growing up, all the time was reggae and then Handel, soca and then Bach, Mozart and then Bali or, you know, Crazy later on, or whoever, right? So that's what it was like for me growing up. So when I do these concerts now and people say, oh, you're putting together orchestral music and the music of Black people and your heritage in interesting ways, I'm like, actually, I'm just doing what's natural. I'm just doing what I grew up with. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. I think we're a pale kind of people, right? We like to mix it up. So we like to just put everything in one pot, and all that separation stuff, that's not for us. We like to bring it all together.
That's right.
Now I want Pilau.
Yes. So Ryan came back in perfect time because I wanted to talk to you and Aaron about if you encountered, well, I know one of your subjects, right? One of your subjects who was, he said he was a jazz musician, but he called his music instrumental music just to ward off the people who were a little bit precious about the word jazz.
Yes.
He said that when he first encountered Pan, right, he felt like maybe a little bit hesitant about approaching the instrument. What was your experience with people who felt like, well, you know, it's sort of the reverse of what we're talking about with Daniel and Sharon, in that people may have felt like, well, this is not for me, because Steelpan is for Caribbean people. It's for people who enjoy soca. What did you notice about people, if anything, about people who felt like, okay, maybe I shouldn't, and then they dipped into the pan and they got addicted?
Well, actually, I think it's a little bit of the opposite, because all or most of the panelists who we interviewed, the very first thing that they mentioned when we got into discussion was that sound that they heard. You know, that is what drew them, not the history of the instrument, not anything else, but that first sound, that mesmerizing, you know, sound of the pan that drew them. And then, you know, venturing into the history came after, as they either traveled to Trinidad and played with other Steelpan members. So the experience has been them looking at it as an instrument and making use of it as an instrument, seeing it as another instrument, and then coming to that understanding of the history. And so it poses a kind of maybe a dilemma for panists from Trinidad who, or pan aficionados from Trinidad who want to sort of, you know, keep or maintain a certain sort of status of the instrument, that there needs to be a sort of a more open approach and recognition that this is not, you know, it's going to go where it's going to go. You know, people are going to take it where they're going to take it to some extent.
Understood. So, Aaron, I have a question for you. As co-producer, I want to talk a little bit about the technical aspect of the film.
Okay. So, one, I want to touch on to what Ryan had said about the diversity. So, you know, I find that as Pan gets out and more people become aware of the diversity of it here in the U.S., and it will definitely grow. And one particular with the EPAN, by being able to add different sounds and different notes, and, as you see fit, I believe it has a lot of growth potential, particularly in the hip hop industry, is what I think is for me. When I see the Steelpan or when I see the E-pan, it's it can be compared to like a drum machine that has various different notes that you can add and coordinate with. And so I think once it grows and people get familiar with what you can do with it, because there's so much, the diversity is so huge that the sounds that you can make with not just the regular pan, but with the E-pan are exponential. So it just needs, once it starts to cross more and more barriers as far as different music styles and people get familiar with how to use it, I think there's no telling where it could go.
I think you're absolutely right. And thank you so much for bringing that up. You listen to hip hop music sometimes and you do hear samples that sound like it could be pan. You're not sure if it's like, what
right.
exactly, what instruments they're using or what techniques they're using. But you're right. The more exposure that electronic pan gets, the more potential that we have to really make it like blow up across genres and across all popular genres. And that is exciting. So I'm glad that you added that piece to the conversation.
I can add something to that actually.
Yes, please.
I even like in the past year, staying with my aunts in Brooklyn, I'm listening to pan orchestras playing orchestral music. No string instruments, no viola, no trumpet. It's all on the pans, right? So it's already there. And what the E-pan, like I'm excited about what that will bring, a whole new layer. But the pan is so versatile, and people need to know that more. And I'm gonna keep on my side of things, excited to do work with that. So that's really I didn't know about this E-pan, but I'm excited now.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So for Danielle, we're gonna see some cello pans and some bass pans alongside your wind and strings and brass instruments. Are we?
I can't say anything yet, and everything, as you know, always depends on funding. But we'll say yes. We'll say yes. Actually, I did have a pan concert with San Francisco Symphony 6 years ago. We had pan on stage, and we celebrating Juve and talking about all with the Trinidadian traditions for all the kids and stuff like that. Yeah, so we've done it. We've already been there.
And Daniel, did you find it was not just Trinis who came out to that? It was Black Americans.
Yeah, everybody comes out. Everybody comes out and loves it. So yeah.
So the pan is
the music just crosses. Yeah, the music just crosses every culture. I mean, and then once you hear it on a pan, it draws you in. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
The power of music. So now I want to talk a bit about the power of film and some of the techniques that you all use in your film. So both of these films are about music, but we also touch on history, emotional journeys, and also there's a lot of talk about the energy of music, right? Like the vibration of music. Sharon, as a director-producer, were there any conscious steps that you took either in the editing room or when you were shooting to really try to make sure that you didn't just keep this on a surface level, but that you got into the depth of who Danielle is and who the music is? Danielle was laughing, so I feel like we're going to get it.
Why, Coffee? Yeah, answer Danielle. Tell her why.
Yeah, I want to answer this question.
Yes, tell her. Yeah.
Sharon is about asking the difficult questions in a way that helps you answer, and you don't realize how deep you're going. Sharon helps you to get there, to go to those places by challenging you in appropriate ways, making you comfortable. And she has a gift for learning how to work with people. I'm not very easy to work with because I'm like a clam kind of. And at the beginning of this documentary, I was like, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about that. And by the end of it, I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about that. We should see this. And that's because of Sharon. And that's actually changed my life. Working with Sharon changed my life, and the change has held even into how I do interviews now, like even this moment. So she is a gifted, talented Trini woman.
Now I paid him to say that, but he said it well.
It's true. No, but it's true. It's true. It's true.
But Kathy, I'll say what I learned in this documentary, what my hope was, because of my ignorance around classical music, straight up, just ignorant around it. What Daniel taught me was the emotional connection to music, was the way that he expressed himself. So I had to make a space for him to express himself outside of the music. So my hope is when you watch this documentary, you see and you feel his passion. When he talks about Beethoven's Ninth and Trinidad, and he brings the two of those together, and the significant event that happened to his aunt. Those things all get expressed in the music. And then my job as a filmmaker is for you to be able to feel that emotion and expression and connection with that music when we're hearing that Beethoven Ninth, and to transport you there. So I hope I was able to do that. And I can't do that unless the participant is willing to open up. And I will say Daniel did. You know, he spoke about really difficult things like coming out, the death of his aunt, racism, you know, things that he used music to help him get through. And so to then have to verbalize it, that's a different thing, because I think everybody here who's in love with music uses music to soothe themselves, to express themselves, to calm themselves, to comfort themselves, to connect, you know, to jump up to that. Like, we use it for all of that. So it's a new language in film and in a documentary to get somebody to verbalize it. And I think he did. And I hope that the film brings together that music and that personal experience.
Oh, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. And I think anybody who's in the audience and wants to make documentaries should be taking notes about the fact that we're not just, you know, looking at subjects. It's human connections we're talking about, human people. And it sounds like Sharon is a true griot who knows how to make this whole thing holistic and really care for the people that she's working with and collaborating with, because Danielle's praise definitely says that, you know, you're one to admire. And I agree, because I saw the film, and as an audience member, I agree as well. We have a question.
I'm coming for you, Kathy, and then I'm going to make you cry, and we're going to find out all about you.
Okay, so I'm going to put up my padlocks on, make sure that they lock tonight. All the burglar proofing is going to be safe, because I am doing that. Danielle might open up, but you didn't get to me with that.
Oh, just wait. Just wait.
Usually time does, you know, you stay around along with a director, a good director, you know, you'll loosen up, and you have to get that confidence of your subjects, you know.
Yeah,
true.
That's important.
Okay, well, you guys are teaching us here, and this is what it's about. It's about learning about your films and about how you make them and why. And we have a question from the audience now for Danielle, and it's about resistance. So the audience member says that they know that classical music and the world of classical music can be a little bit, they didn't use the word uptight, but I'll paraphrase, right? And they wanted to know about any resistance that you may have encountered.
So the resistance that I've encountered often comes in terms of the music making itself when you're in a rehearsal and somebody has different ideas of how things should go, right? This is too fast, this is too slow. Surprisingly, in terms of bringing this sort of music to the stage, like and those fusions, there's been surprisingly little resistance. And in fact, right now, the musicians on stage themselves want it. Just finished doing a concert with the National Arts Centre Orchestra in Ottawa with a musician by the name of Jamila, who's a reggae singer, Canadian reggae singer from Jamaica. The musicians loved it. It was reggae and orchestra, right? For the whole past week in Ottawa. They loved it. So there's a surprisingly small amount of resistance. The musicians and I'm in that group, are very uptight and extremely detail oriented about music. So when you go to a musician and say, hey, I want the pizzicato here to sound the same as the Steelpan, so a little bit more dolce, softer in tone, but still bright, they're like, okay, that's what they love. right? So as we take these Caribbean music and fuse it with orchestra, it's about the detail. It's about something we call performance practice, getting into how you perform it. That's when you lose resistance, when you're talking about the tradition and the history around a body of music. So actually, it's going pretty good. Surprisingly well. Surprisingly well.
Great news. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I really wish that we could go like another half an hour because I had so many things I wanted to like dig into, and I really love these films. But thank you everyone for joining this Q&A. Don't forget you can still catch all these films at ttfilmfestival.com. And if you're hungry for more films after the festival, check out storyplay.tv.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Everyone.
Thank you so much. Wonderful meeting you.
Thank you.
Same here.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.